We now have our next panel discussion, and from spirits we move effortlessly to beer. For our beer panel today, I'd like to first invite on stage as the moderator Dr. Pratik Chaturvedi, the CEO of BrewDog India. Pratik is also known as the pioneer of craft beer in India, having set up India's first craft rum microbrewery in the form of Doolally. For this, they work very closely with the government of India for the creation of India's first microbrewery policy. Pratik, please. He later moved on and founded the Ministry of Beer before moving on to BrewDog India. I'd then like to call up on stage Mr. Narayan Manapalli, the founder and CEO of Geist Brewing Company, also the chairman of the advisory committee for Brews and Spirits. Narayan, welcome again. Next up, can I invite Nitin Vishwas, the co-founder of Moonshine, India's first meadery. Yeah. I hope he's got some mead for me. And Oliver Skoff from Doolally. Oliver Skoff, as the name suggests, is a German native from Dusseldorf, began his brewing career a long, long time ago. In 2008, he co-founded Doolally. Oliver, please take a seat. Yeah. And along with Suketu and Pratik, he's consulted for numerous Indian beer brands, including Effengut, White Oil, and the Oi Brewing Company. Pratik, over to you.
Hi and good afternoon everyone. Am I audible? Yeah? Okay. So the discussion today, and we've got quite a few luminaries from the industry. Oliver here, of course, and Narayan are some of the oldest hands in the industry. Since 2007, I've known Oliver as a co-founder in Doolally. And I should make the due credit and correction here. He is as much the co-pioneer of the craft beer industry in India as I am. We were the first guys. Narayan, of course, with Geist has been one of the oldest players. Nitin, doing the meadery, and Jason, of course, we are going to be looking for your expertise as we go forward. So the discussion is basically, what does the forecast say? Craft beer has been in India for about 12, 13 years so far. Craft breweries have been mushrooming all over India. Then came COVID, shut everything down, and then things have restarted. The overall topic that we have today is that the microbreweries or tap rooms are continuing the relentless march across India, from Vizag to Pondicherry, from Guwahati to Lucknow. MNCs are also venturing into this section, and beer brands are entering on-trade, microbreweries chains. Microbreweries are launching their own packaged beer brands also. So what exactly are the coming few years looking like? That is the discussion we're going to be having today. The first point we can pick up is, are we likely to see a renaissance in the packaged craft beer market? Or will it be an international giant or a homegrown brand that goes on to show us the way? I think for this question, first of all, let me direct this to Narayan. You guys have been in the packaged craft beer market for a long time. What are your inputs? How are things looking? Optimistic, pessimistic, reasonably neutral? Over to you, Narayan.
Hi, everybody. I think overall, if you think about it, craft beer, in my opinion, is at the very nascent stage in India. We have got so much more to do, and the market is so big that it is, as far as we are concerned, just the very, very beginning stages of our life. Packaging craft beer, we've introduced this concept of a crowler, which we started back in 2021. And what's been interesting is the further away a beer goes from your brewery, the less control you have for it, right? So it's easier to do kegs, but when you start putting stuff into a can, things become infinitely more difficult. And so most of us think putting craft beer into a can is put the beer in, seam it, and you're done. But there is so much of science behind even seaming a can. There is so much of worry that we have for making sure that that beer is going to last along the way and then taste pretty much as it was at the brewery. So overall, I think that there is a big market. We are at the very early stages, but don't underestimate the science and the process involved in making sure that that can survive its journey and your customers have a good experience. And the last thing I want to add is that making a beer, your product is only 1/10 of your effort. 90% of your time is going to be helping that particular product be recognized by customers, so building the brand, taking care of distribution, and spending long hours and time to make sure that the brand gets recognized and is accepted by customers on a store shelf where there are hundreds of other products.
So, taking a cue from what Narayan just said, it has been an interesting year for the last couple of years for that matter. There are the craft beer players, for example, like Geist, of course, Toit, Effingut, who've grown from one location into multiple states. The big boys are also trying their hands at this. AB InBev came up with 7 Rivers, for which they are doing their own packaging. They are also doing microbreweries with Taj in certain places. Overall, it's an interesting market. But the one guy who's probably seen this market more than anybody else is Oliver, having set up Dulali back in 2008. Having seen the last 14 odd years, Oliver, and watching what is happening today, what are your views on what's happening now?
Yeah, Pratik and I actually started this journey together. It is now 15 years ago that we started Dulali, and Dulali happened to be the first microbrewery in India. I remember the early days when our customers was very suspicious about hazy beers and wheat beers. They would not sell. Yeah, we basically had to sell lager beers. We had customers coming all the way in Pune. They coming from Mumbai. Most of our customers actually came from there. So less known this concept was. And the first couple of years were very slow. And we often ask ourselves whether this was the right decision, and it was difficult to get this concept out. And it took many years also until the first competitor came up in Maharashtra. Brewpub started in Gurgaon, Brewpub started in Karnataka slowly, and then suddenly the entire thing started getting a lot of speed. And before we looked around, there were 20 brewpubs in Bangalore and there were 80 in Gurgaon. And this concept was suddenly all over the place. The beer quality didn't always keep up. Yeah, it was sometimes very questionable in the beginning, and it was more the novelty of the word selling than the actual product. But I mean, in the last 15 years, I think it's doubtless craft beer as a restaurant concept has done an incredible journey. And it has become in the cities pretty much a household name. But for the packaging part, I agree to Narayan. We are very early in the market, and there is so many challenges ahead of us. Taxation, which makes production in small quantities still very difficult, but it's all geared for large volumes at very low production cost. It's the very challenging retail system, no cold chain. All this is starting to change, but I see this goes very, very slowly, and whoever is in the market early is paving the way, but at a very high cost right now.
I think the policy struggle is something every craft player, be it beer, be it spirits, be it mead or wine, is going to talk about a lot. Of course, and I'm sure all of us here know that when it comes to state policy, in India, when it comes to alcohol, every state is a country by itself. Everything changes, from the duty structure to the fee structure, everything changes. But at the same time, craft spirits, craft beers, the relentless march goes on. Interesting stuff like hard seltzers and ciders are being done, mead is being done. And this is where I need Narayan to probably weigh in and tell us what are your, Nitin.
I want to, I mean, product-wise, the last 15 years have seen great improvement. Yeah, it is no problem anymore if you are in the urban centers of India to get a good beer nowadays.
True.
There's many choices now, and that journey has been a very successful one. And I think this is like also the basis to grow this industry. 10 years ago, the product was not there yet. Now we have the product, now the rest has to fall in place.
So, Oliver, you've already done a couple of ciders and hard seltzers. So before I go to Nitin, can I just take a word from you on this subject? Then we move to Nitin. What's your experience been so far in the last couple of years on the seltzers and the ciders that you've done?
I mean, for us, I don't think there's a general answer. Yeah? For us at Doolally, we introduced cider. Cider has been like has been paving our road. Yeah? It's been becoming a very popular product, especially in Pune where we started. There we're having some 50% sales of cider. But I do think this is very, very dependent on your actual setup, on your customers, on your concept. Altogether, I see it's beer itself, yeah, has much more power to sell.
Okay.
Ciders, hard seltzers, these are all like a little bit noise on the edge. Sometimes you can actually make it work for yourself, but it never has the same power as beer has.
Nitin, you guys are doing some great stuff in the mead market. And here's to you to share your learnings, your experience so far. How's things looking to you guys? You've grown across multiple states so far.
Yeah,
How's your experience been? Yeah, okay, over to you.
So we're in about 4 states and 3 countries at the moment outside of India. See, the way I see it is what craft beer started off with, practically Doolally and you guys, setting up a opportunity for a brand that is not the big guys, right? So not the flavorless, but more the flavorful. And for us, we're sort of just marching along the same way. There's a lot of room in India for flavorful beverages. It just need not be beer, right? And there's a dearth for that because, and for me personally, I don't see seltzers growing as quickly as slightly more stronger flavored beverage. Mainly because just if you look at our food, there's so much of richness in the food. So the only way you can sort of complement that is by actually having a beverage that works with that food. And for me, mead is what we make, but for me, mead, ciders, and for that matter, even craft beers, right? They're not as bitter as the commercial products. They're a lot more flavorful. They're a lot more thought out when they make it. And I see more and more people as they enter the legal drinking age, not wanting to be caught dead drinking what their fathers and mothers and grandfathers and grandmothers drank. They want to drink something different. They want to drink something more younger and something more flavorful, something more contemporary. And in India, I think we've not been able to tap the Indian nostalgia element, right? So the flavors that moonshine makes is guava chili, salted kokum. The whole idea is to somewhere go deep down into your subconscious and tickle that little nostalgic memory with a beverage that is made well, right? We're not dissing any category, but what we're saying is I think it's time that beverages stop becoming so standardized. Before the war, craft wasn't really a thing. It was the way of life. It just became more commercial after the war, after World War II. So I think if we're going back to that, it's like Narayan said, it's just the beginning. I mean, we need more and more beverages. I think the most important thing, however, is channel. We need channel to be able to support people like us because unfortunately, you generally get gobbled up because there's such small set of avenues to actually put your product out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jason, coming from IWSR, you probably have a lot of information which is data-based for us to give us some kind of inkling of what to expect, what things are looking like. Please do share your thoughts.
I'll try. First thing I'm going to do is promise the audience this is the last time you're going to see me on stage. I know I've been on for most of the morning, but I'm not going to be on much more after this, so it might perk up. I think that a lot of you need to put this in context, and the context is that India is a strong beer market. So even those guys that do craft beers tend to go for strong beers for craft beers. I tend to feel they need to include them anyway. Budweiser's got an 8% beer in this market. That's unusual. I don't think there's too much of a problem with being local, being regional, these are microbreweries after all. Micro is part of the appeal. So when it comes to the credibility of an international giant having a craft beer, for me personally, I don't see it. I don't think it doesn't stack up, doesn't work. because you're an international giant. You know, you're a mass market provider. You're not somebody that you discover in the middle of nowhere in a microbrewery. But at the same time, you also need to have, if you want to grow your product, the consistency. I don't say quality, because quality is pretty much always there, but consistency. And you don't get that unless you've got a decent sized operation. So there's a bit of a catch-22 there. I think one of the ways that it works, and it's not just here, but in other countries, craft beer works in this way, is a kind of sort of Zara approach, a limited edition approach. I think I read somewhere that Beer 91 launched like 52 beers in 2022. A lot of those were specific to individual tap rooms. They weren't all packaged. You don't have to be packaged or a microbrewery. You can serve where you make. Even I live in a place in the UK called Bath. There's about half a dozen brew pubs just in Bath itself, where you have the choice to drink more mainstream, but equally you'll probably drink something they've brewed themselves. I even did a birthday treat where I brewed some of the stuff. It's possible. But even when I go to those pubs, I go to the ones where it's value for money. So let's not delude ourselves that this is not about price, because it is about price. It's all, at the end of the day, everything's about price. Taste, yes, but price also. So these pubs in Bath, some of them do them at £4 a pint, so that's, let's say, 350 rupees. Some are twice that. Which ones do you drink? I know what I would be drinking, somewhere in the middle probably, and not too many obviously. But people will pay Punk IPA, that's £7 a pint. That's like a mainstream craft brand. They've done really well, but that's unusual. I'm very conscious when I do the work on the numbers, if you like, in India, that what I see where I go is very much the cream on top. It's a small part of the market. The majority of the market is strong beer in 60 cl bottles consumed outside the shop because of the lack of refrigeration. So I'm not saying the tendency is not towards a non-strong beer market with lighter beers, etc. And obviously in the on-trade, we touched on it earlier. I think that's where female consumers are going to be more comfortable drinking. So the beyond beer stuff, that will also have a place in the on-trade that people will recognise. But it's slowly changing, it's not quick. And what's the problem with that? It doesn't have to happen overnight. Maybe for your bank balance it does, but from the point of view of the future of the market, the solidity of that future, slow's just as good as fast, if not better.
No, totally agree with you. In fact, if I take the personal experience I've had with Brewdog so far in the last 3 years, we set up Bombay, we set up Gurgaon, then we set up Punjab, currently in Amritsar. And when we arrived in Amritsar, even though there were quite a few craft breweries already, what we realized what people were looking for the alcohol ROI, how much bang for the buck they can get. And when it comes to Bombay, when a customer walks in, they take an Elvis juice or a Punk IPA, they're looking at the tasting notes, the aroma, the color. When it comes to Punjab, in Amritsar, the only thing I want to know is the alcohol percentage. And surprisingly, not just 8%, we have been doing 9.5% beers in Amritsar. And they are the ones selling like hotcakes. And a bestseller globally like a Punk IPA, which is just 5% alcohol, does not do so well in Amritsar, but ends up doing all right here, And one interesting play somebody did on this also, just to take a snide one, was Bro Code. They launched a so-called beer at 15% alcohol, though they are a wine, and it did reasonably okay. They picked up fine. But that's where the other question comes in, that will non-alcoholic be some kind of a thing in the days to come? Narayan, you've been in the industry for some time. You guys would have played with multiple grains also. So let me break this into two. What's your experience been with, let's say, rice, millets? And do you think non-alcoholic could become a thing, especially in a world where maybe Gen Z, as Jason said in his presentation earlier, Gen Z and Gen X are the higher consumers. They seem to have become a little more health conscious after the COVID. Will non-alcoholic be a thing? Will all these interesting grains become a thing? What are your views here?
Truthfully, in our business, we don't see it. Non-alcoholic is not something we're going to be focused on, because all of whatever limited reports we have access to, customers that we talk to, non-alcoholic if it happens, in my opinion, will take a long, long time to happen. A lot of people are doing it because it's surrogate advertising, so it's great to kind of promote it, but I actually feel non-alcoholic, we are at a stage where we're so nascent in the whole craft beer space right now. I think the West has got 30, 40 years of experience under their belts, and I think for a more mature market, non-alcoholic, low-alcoholic becomes more relevant. Today, one of our fastest selling beers is James Blonde, which is 7.7% alcohol by volume. And so I think in Hindi we call it Paisa Vasool beer. So a lot of people want Paisa Vasool for the products that, that they drink. As far as the concept of millets is concerned, I think it's a very interesting category. We have done some experiments where we've used maybe 30, 40% millets in beers. The problem with millets is that the size of the grain is really small. So you need different ways of lautering, for example, because the traditional lauter tun will not take it. And most breweries in India, at least craft breweries, don't have mash filters. So you'll need a rethink on the process. Nobody has been able to at least produce 100% millet-based beer in India yet, as far as I know. The ones that I've tasted are from Australia, but something is missing in terms of the body. It seems to be lighter. It tastes okay, but it just tastes a little lighter and a little less on the mouthfeel. So for us, we will experiment, but as a small portion, and only when we start producing, when we start changing our process is when we look at doing some more with like 100% millets. The other problem we have is we are a commercial brewery, we're not a microbrewery. So we produce, our brewery is 6 times the size of a traditional microbrewery. And so we have production that continuously goes on. So to interrupt that production and then try to do a small batch beer is harder for us to do. So we have to really think about when do we do these experiments and how do we do these experiments, rather than also focus on the bread and butter that brings in the money.
Thank you for that. I think any craft discussion is going to be incomplete without our favorite whipping boy of alcohol policy. If I take the beer example, the policy changes like a country every state to state. For example, for a microbrewery, Delhi allows kegging, Punjab allows kegging, but right next door, Haryana does not allow kegging, Chandigarh does not allow kegging, Rajasthan will not let you take beer in, Karnataka will not let you take beer out. But we have one gentleman here, of course, who's already in 4 states, Nitin. You said you are in 4 states, so ours is more of a beer-centric experience. You are probably more on the little bit of a wine-centric experience.
It's wine.
What has your experience been on our favorite whipping boy, alcohol policy?
Alcohol policy. See, I find, so while alcohol policy is difficult to understand for the folks who are already in the category, we are a category that had to sit with the government and create one. It was pretty much close to what Oliver and Suketu did, right? There was no category called mead. We had to go and explain it to the government, talk to them about honey, start them off with explaining what the policies in the West look like, what the policies in the East look like, and then sort of try and squeeze mead in. It's not, so thankfully I think when the state of Maharashtra really created the policy, they classified it under the broader umbrella of wine. So for that purpose, we can go from state to state, and the costs are not that high, because at least till now the understanding was just Karnataka and Maharashtra will remain the only source of producing wine.
Yeah.
Everybody else had a consumption license. But after we have created the mead wine policy, we see UP creating a mead wine policy, we see Rajasthan creating one, because all these states which were higher in honey production suddenly have realized they can create their own intrinsic wine policy. So I think we are staring at a future where wine policies are also going to become as complicated as beer and spirits. But having said that, because the way we make our meads is more closer to an RTD, it's 6.5%, 4.5% fruit-forward beverages. It's very hard trying to explain to the government why wine is packaged in 330 ml. So for us, the biggest challenge is sitting with every state government, literally one after the other, telling them wine can come in 330 ml packages. Thankfully, Brocode is trying to fix that in some places faster than us, but it still is a challenge. I mean, for us, every state that we go to, we at least get called once back into the excise office saying, how is this not a beer? And we've got to explain to people this is an RTD, this is wine, and the whole shebang continues. But now with UP particularly having created a made wine policy, it has become a little more mainstream. So now we are hoping that while it will be harder, the taxation is going to go up for us from state to state, they will understand this side category of mead. They are able to understand if you can connect it to the agricultural story. That's, by the way, what we have realized with excise. So if you can sit down and explain to them how it benefits them and how it benefits farmers, there is, and if you're genuine about it and you're not just making it up,
Yeah.
they actually do listen. So it's a longer process, it's a harder process, but then it is a process.
No, absolutely. And I think Oliver will probably agree with me when I say this, that though policy is quite rigid, policy can be little complicated, we did end up bumping into officers who were helpful at many times. There were guys who were close-minded, but then there were other guys who did help us out. In fact, I remember meeting the deputy commissioner of one of the states and saying, you know, you've been way nicer to us than we expected. And all that they say was, you know what, you guys are educated bunch of people. If you're coming here and asking for help, why not? So it's a mixed bag, I guess. There are states, there are officers where we end up hitting a wall. And there are others where the system seems to help us find a way and, you know, take things forward. I can see the clock is almost ticking and about to get over. And this is where I guess we can simply ask the audience if you have any kind of questions to ask us before we call it a day. Over to you, yeah. I can see 2 questions. Can the mic be passed to our friend there, please? We can't hear you. I think the mic is not working. Good to go. Take this one, yaar. Ye le lo.
Hello.
Thank-
It's working. Thank you.
Welcome back, Jason. Thank you for helping. Yeah, okay. Over to you.
Hello. I am Vatsal Thakkar. I am from Mumbai and I am a student of KC College. We are actually making a project upon hard seltzer. My question is to Mr. Nitin Vishwas. Sir, how do you plan to market the ciders, the meads product, and the hard seltzer if you want to introduce all the companies which are currently in the market like Barney's, Pursue, White Claw, etc. So how do these companies and you plan to convince your target audience to have the ciders also with beers and whiskey to try your particular product?
So I had a friend of mine who had asked what's the easiest way to market, performance marketing, online. Finally, it comes down to wet sampling, or what people like to refer to as liquid on lips. The more you get wet sampling done is the cheapest form of marketing. So you give out your product, have people taste it. If they like it, they come back to it. And that is predominantly the way. The way we look at it is typically in marketing, you have 3 stages. There is this whole awareness, then there is trial, and then there's repeats. Right? So the initial awareness, what we try and do is we stack ourselves right in the middle of a beer alley. So I'll have Narayan on my left, I'll have a bunch of beer brands on my right, and I'll be somewhere in the middle hoping to get picked up. So that's where the awareness comes in. And then after that, it's the label needs to be exciting, it cannot be boring. So which is what in Moonshine we have artist-inspired labels, so every label is different. And finally, the last marketing and the most important marketing is the liquid in itself. That and the price point needs to work together. You have to have a great liquid and it has to be at the right price. And if it works, you know the person's going to come back for it. But sampling is the easiest way to get people to pick up your product.
Right. And what's your view upon the particular product, hard seltzer? As it's, as Mr. Pratik mentioned, health conscious Gen Z is coming up. So it's basically low calories, zero sugar, alcoholic drink.
Like no alcoholic beverage, I think the example that Narayan mentioned, I give it that. I think we as a country are quite far away from the health conscious, the health being the criteria for alcohol selection. I think we are still, on a maturity scale, we're still far from it. It will come, it may not come as quickly as we think it will, but I believe it's at least half a decade away for the real, the surge to come. That's personal, my opinion.
In India, we just want to get high, right?
Just on that, I heard that the no alcohol point's been mentioned. I agree with Narayan. I don't think that no alcohol craft beer is much of a prospect. But there are two elements of context that one should bear in mind. Number one is what I showed. Moderation is very interesting for Indian consumers, and consumption amongst female consumers is apparently very low. Those two things kind of come together, particularly in the on-trade. So there is an opportunity. If you just have a strong beer mindset, you're missing out on that. But I think it might come in what is known as beyond beer. In other words, not beer, but other stuff. And if you look at the very wide context, which is what the multinational companies say, they say, and this is Carlsberg, Heineken, ABI, etc., that about they want 20% of their revenue to come from no and low alcohol products by the end of this decade. I don't think they can achieve that globally without making a major success of no alcohol in India. Doesn't necessarily have to be a beer, might be some kind of RTD, but they're all going to have a go, they're all going to try. And some are going to succeed. And it might pull in, it's going to increase consumption, whatever. The price, that's the main problem, that's the main issue. Get the price right, and they'll come.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
My name is Arun. I am here to get some feedback on how to start a new microbrewery. From the panelists, I would like to know what would be the budgetary cost for starting a microbrewery, and what are the challenges while starting a microbrewery. Thanks.
That has a essay type, novel sized answer, but I think Oliver can take a shot at it, so over to him.
I think this is very difficult to give you like a condensed answer to this, yeah, because it depends very much where you're setting up, which state you're setting up, on your concept, how big you're doing it. If you're looking, I think the cheapest places you probably find, set up you probably find in Yoga, where often investment is hardly more than 50 lakh, while you go nowadays to Hyderabad and see microbrews coming up where 20 crores are spent. Yeah, so there is no one catch-all answers. One thing I can probably suggest you that you should not start too small and expect to grow organically, because even a microbrewery, despite being micro, it has a lot of overheads, and unless you meet a certain number of sales, 5,000 or 6,000 liters per month, you will not be able to break even. And this is not just even particular for India. I think this is globally, because you have to pay your rent somehow, and in order for your investment to come back, in order to pay your brewer, to pay your license, all this, you need to have a certain size. You won't be able to do this out of your kitchen.
Thank you.
We can talk afterwards, if you're interested.
Just add one more quick thing, which is in Bangalore, everything's just gone mad. Microbreweries now are being measured like clothes, which is large, extra large, and 2XL. There's not even like square footage anymore, right? It's just becoming insane.
Lakhs of square feet.
You have
Lakhs of square feet.
microbreweries now that are 80,000 square feet. That's 2 acres. I mean, that's not it's just ridiculous. So, first off, have a lot of money.
True.
Find a good brewer. Be patient. And yeah, I mean, and be passionate about what you do. It breaks my heart to see a lot of people setting up microbreweries because they think they can make money. My dad always told me money should be the outcome of your passion, not the focus of your passion, right? So.
Hello. Hi. Myself Manikanta. I'm from a family of 80 years of liquor family. Okay. So my question is to Pratik. First thing is that I've been closely observing microbreweries from past a decade, how it's coming up and what happened, how was the beer club came up and Toit came up. So when you compare it to the western side, where the policy says where we can also get the bottle done and get to the retail outlets. So I just want to know, ask you to throw some light on especially Karnataka, because I don't know, I assume that you've been talking to people here. So how soon that can happen, or will it happen? First thing is that. And my second question again will be to Nitin. Just want to know, very curious, why moonshine? Because moonshine has got a name, very negativity. It was a concept told for distilling in night and illegal. So I just want one curious thing. Just know.
Okay, so this is where I'll have to probably dodge the question and hand it to Narayan, because he is based out of Bangalore. You probably know more about Karnataka excise policy than I do. But I'll weigh in a quick one for Maharashtra. That in Maharashtra, the first policy came out, what, about 15 years ago? And it's only recently that they're considering allowing microbreweries to bottle and can their beer. It is still under process. We keep hearing, and we've been hearing this for the last 2 years, that they will allow us packaging one of these days. Yeah, that is what is happening in Maharashtra, 15 years only. Over to Narayan to give us if he knows anything happening in Karnataka. He was asking, will the microbreweries be allowed to bottle and can anytime soon? What's the overview on that? Expectations?
So if it is Karnataka, you look at the taxation, it's 35 rupees per liter. Whereas big breweries now, for draft beer, it's 10 rupees of excise duty per bulk liter and 150% for your additional excise duty. So, and then by the way, for bottles and cans, that's gone up to 185% now, this additional excise duty. So the view of the Karnataka government, as far as I know, is this, which is to say, the large breweries, the commercial breweries, support in almost 2,600 crores in revenues. The small breweries, all 83 microbreweries combined, are probably doing about 200, maybe even less than that. So their view is very simple, which is to say, I'm not going to upset my, source of income, and many large breweries are reticent to allow a lower excise duty to then come and compete with their products on store shelves and in kegs.
Over to you, Nitin.
Why moonshine? Okay. So the word moonshine, for those of you who don't know what it means, is essentially in the late 20s in Southern America, when prohibition was a thing, they would ferment corn alcohol in the middle of the night, and the distilled spirit would have a little bit of a shimmer because of the moonlight, and they would call it moonshine, and then that would be floated down the Mississippi River, and you would have people with rakes called moon rakers who would pull it into their respective counties on a regular basis. Right? So that's the definition of moonshine. When we started to make, that should not be recorded though. Anyway, when we started to make meads, I think the concept of mead wasn't understood. Nobody knew what it was. And for me to go and explain to the excise that, the word mead comes from the Latin word medu, comes from the Sanskrit word madhu, madhira, madhushala, somras. So there was some sort of a lineage to India as well. And this whole process took us about 3 years, and we continued to make mead at home. I won't say where home was. Let's, for the sake of discussion, assume home was not in India. And we kept making a lot of mead, and we kept giving it to friends and family. And most people asked us, is this tharra? Some people asked us, who understood what the word moonshine was, is this moonshine? And then the name stuck, and quite honestly, not too many people outside US understand the category of moonshine. So we said, let's just stick with the word moonshine. It's got a nice ring to it. And that's how the name moonshine came into being. So let's just say there were 3 years of not so legal ways of making mead in a country outside of India.
Right, guys? I think that's where we call, we have one final question. All right. Last one for you.
Sorry. Jason, sorry to put you in the spot. What is the percentage, say, of a craft brewing in, say, a developed market like United States compared to, say, a normal market share?
So you want the market share or the ABV?
The market share, roughly.
Well, as I said, these are microbreweries, even the slightly larger ones. So you're talking about, very small single figures. Even in somewhere like the US, probably 5% maybe of the market, of the overall market. They're still dominated. Beer markets are dominated by the international players. But there's a multiplication factor. Of course, if it's a microbrewery, it can never have the economies of scale, etc., that the big guys have. And even if there were 1 million microbreweries, one on every street corner, it'd probably only be 20% of the market. So I don't think there shouldn't be a fixation on the share, the market share that the craft breweries have, because they are intended to be, at least in my opinion, small, local, regional, hard to get, make things in the right way. They're kind of a reference back to the way the industry started before it became mainstream, before it became all about, Budweiser. It's like the sort of Coke approach. Coke used to say, within a hand's reach of desire. So in other words, the distribution of their products needed to be to everybody around the world, just there. To me, that's changed. That should change. That's mass marketing. Mass marketing doesn't appeal to individuals in these coming generations. They want something they can make their own. They want something they can discover. And the good thing about craft beer is it gives what I call the gift of discovery back to the consumer. The gift of discovery is a great thing. You've got to be not told something, but find it out for yourself, or at least believe that you have. That's the challenge of more modern day marketing, to inform consumers, Generation Z. And the impact of that is actually that you're going to probably have more smaller companies than a limited number of larger companies. And this is a perfect sector to illustrate that.
Thanks.
I'll just add a line there, because this is a question the excise guys asked, so I kind of know the answer. Craft beer in America is roughly 40 odd years old. There are 5 or 6 big players like the Budweisers and the Heinekens of the world. There are about 4,000 craft brewers, which are defined as up to 500,000 liters in a year. And in spite of being there for 40 odd years and being about 3,800 today, they contribute 2.1% of the total beer market. That's it. In 40 years. India, it's just been 12 odd years, actually. So we're just scraping the surface out here. On that note, thank you guys. I can see Vikram giving me the eye. It's been long. So thank you everyone. Have a good day. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your inputs here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. To Mr. Oliver.
Thank you, Prateek. Thank you. Thanks, Nitin. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Ollie. Thanks, Narayan. We'll take a lunch break now. We'll reconvene at 2:15 for our next panel discussion, which focuses on wine, and that will be followed up by another discussion on investment in the alcobev industry.
Thank you for having me, Robert. Like falling off a log.